Hello, one and all. Welcome once again to the A2theK Wrestling Show. As always, I am Carl, who, as always, is joined by Anthony, and we are the Middle-Aged Outlaws. We are the founders of the 1am Club, and we have a hell of a show in store for you this week. Anthony, tell the people what we've got lined up this week.
What have we got lined up this week, Carl? I hear you ask. Well, let's start with the basics, shall we? We're going to talk about all the latest news and rumours in the world of wrestling this week, Carl. And this week we've got a doozy because WWE decided to play silly beggars, but we'll talk about that shortly. We're going to go through this week in wrestling, in which we're going to talk about the four big shows being Raw, NXT, AEW's Dynamite, and SmackDown. And then, finally, Carl, because we've been planning this one for a little bit,
Finally.
we have an exclusive interview with WWE legend Adam Bomb.
Adam Bomb, indeed. Brian Clark himself.
So that should be an absolutely fun one. We're really looking forward to talking to him. I think it's been in the works for a little while now, hasn't it, Carl? To be fair,
it has. Absolute stand-up guy. Obviously, you know, he's had a few different re-emergences in the media, if you will, of recent kind of years, and you know, he's looking to kind of set the record straight with us. So it would be fascinating to just speak to him. So one of his caliber, you know, people he's been in the ring with and wrestled, and the career he's had. You know, we're super excited and happy that we get to sit down with him.
Indeed.
But Anthony, before all that,
Carl,
before all that, it is time before the news to kick off with our fact of the week.
Oh, you didn't know?
Fucking Road Dogg. Love it. So,
indeed,
my favourite title, and yours, I hope, if you are listening to this show, the Intercontinental title. It's the Workers' Belt. The Workers' Belt, close to my heart. Just how prestigious it is. If you look at the list of names who've won it over the years. However, did you know? Between WrestleMania 19 and WrestleMania 27, that's right, nearly 10 years, Intercontinental title matches at WrestleMania, on the grandest stage of them all, have only lasted 20 seconds combined.
Fuck off, really?
Fuck off, indeed, right? And that all came from just the one match at WrestleMania 25, in which Rey Mysterio beat JBL in 20 seconds, basically. So, wow, you know, Intercontinental title, best title ever, in my opinion, only defended at WrestleMania once in a 9-year stretch between WrestleMania 19 and WrestleMania 27. So, yeah, 20 seconds in 9 WrestleManias. And to put it into context, Anthony, people always kick off about the women's title, which, rightfully so, it has not been given the attention it deserves over the years. But you know, in that time, it was defended in 5 out of those 9 WrestleManias, totaling a match time of over 30 minutes and 45 seconds. So, insane. The fucking Intercontinental title in that period.
I mean, wow. I expect this with the US title, but the IC
exactly.
title? Really?
Exactly. But, you know, I know I talk about how bad that is today, but if you think about it, at least it's getting defended now, you know what I mean, at WrestleMania. So, yeah, I take it all back. But that was it, and that was our...
Oh, you didn't know?
I love it. Fucking love it. Fucking love it. Awesome. So, kick us off with the headlines this week, Anthony. What is going down?
Certainly will, Carl. So, we've got a hell of a week, as I mentioned, or as I alluded to in the introduction. So, as far as headlines go, Carl, we have, starting with a rather amusing one, we have the one and only Ryback surveying fans about what he should be doing next with his career, with surprising results. We have, sadly, WWE releasing a load more talents, actually. We have John Cena Sr. Believing that Banks and Belair were instructed to cry at WrestleMania. We have Keith Lee thanking the fans and hinting towards his return to the ring. We have Bubba Ray Dudley thinking that only one man can stop Roman Reigns, or one nan, as I wrote. So,
wonder
whose nan it is.
With a ram bag.
We have CM Punk responding to questions of a potential rematch between him and Samoa Joe. We have Sebastian Stan wanting to play Ric Flair in a wrestling biopic. We have Jim Ross wanting Will Ospreay in AEW. We have Eva Marie apparently getting some backstage heat. And we have JTG Crime Time talking about their booking in WWE. And now the headlines for this week, Carl. Would you like to kick us off with the first one? A little bit
I
of
would
a
love to.
amusing
I
one
would
to be honest.
fucking love to. So, Ryback, the gift that keeps on giving. So, obviously, there's been a lot of talk now. Ryback has been out of the game for a few months, maybe over a year. How long has he even been out? Probably more than that, potentially.
Oh, easily more than that.
So, he's been out for that long. No one even remembers. But he has put up a survey on his Twitter account, and it's still active. So, I think, at the time of this, there's 2 days left to vote. But he basically wanted to know, what promotion would you like to see me return to, which is a weird way of phrasing it, in 2021. And obviously he listed AEW, he listed Impact, he listed NXT, weirdly enough, or he listed a fourth option of retire. And internet wrestling fans, do not let us down. So at the time of this particular recording, the choice that is topping that list with 71%, Anthony. 71. It's gone up from 71% of respondents out of 15,500 votes have elected that he should retire. So, wow. Yeah, that's not ideal.
Right in the pride. Jesus. That's yeah. I didn't expect it to get that kind of response. When it first hit as news, it was like 44%.
Yeah.
When I went and cast my vote, I won't tell you what it was. It was about 50-odd%. But my God. So
yeah, I also casted a vote. But still,
I wondered if he potentially regrets putting as an option.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the whole thing was a bit weird. To be fair, he phrased it as which promotion do you want to see me return to in 2021? So from my knowledge, he hasn't wrestled in any of them. So obviously NXT technically, but even so, he hates WWE. So why would he put that as an option?
I know Triple H. So many people arguing about that, going, "Oh, it's Triple H's promotion." It's not. It's still Vinnie Max.
Well, it's still Vince. You know what I mean? I mean, Vince doesn't pay any attention to it, but still, if Vince decides one week, do you know what? This is going to happen. It's going to happen. And let's be fair.
He worded it like it was a promotion in its own right when it's not. It's still part of the WWE umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. It's a third show, Anthony, though. It's not developmental, damn it.
It's not developmental at all, no.
But
despite the fact that every once in a while, old Grandad Vince comes along and poaches all their talent, it's definitely not a developmental promotion.
Definitely not. But yeah, just what a random poll to put up in the first place. To my knowledge, he hasn't really wrestled for any of these other companies anyway. And then to have retire on there as well.
I think that was probably his poor choice in wording, because he's talking about him returning to wrestling, and I think he's phrased that wrong, because like you say, he's not returning to any of those places. But on top of that, I think, sadly, he always used to like the back and forth he had with CM Punk, and after CM Punk left, he spent about, 5-6 years in WWE imitating him for some reason. And now he spends his time doing the same thing again, and he's like, well, I'll copy CM Punk and put myself in the media every once in a while. So yeah, I think it's just one of them attention things, really, sadly.
Just one of them attention things. But yeah, interesting. People want to see Ryback retire. So way to see that blow up in your face.
Yeah, but why put it as an option?
Well,
what are you thinking?
Setting himself up for failure straight out of the gate. Bad move.
Carl, I'll move on to the next one. And I really, really, really don't understand WWE lately. I don't.
Lately.
And this one is, similar to what they did last year. In fact, 1 year to the day to be, really on the nose about it. Literally a year later,
of course it was.
They do it again. Right? Mm-hmm. They've released 10 wrestlers from their contracts, and this was announced on Thursday last week. So we've had a little bit of time to let that marinate. And some of the names will surprise you, Carl. So now a lot of people are really shocked. So I'll give you a quick list of them, right? We had Samoa Joe, Billy Kay, Peyton Royce, Mickey James, Chelsea Green, Tucker, Kalisto, Bo Dallas, Mojo Rawley, and Wesley Blake were all let go. Now, some of those names really stood out here, Carl. Like some really shocking ones there, like Wesley Blake, right? But a lot of people are like really kind of shocked over Samoa Joe. And don't be wrong, that is shocking. Like, you know,
Mm.
but you know when you can go, I can kind of get where they've come from in that. In like they're worried about his injury and his age.
Yeah.
And you know, for whatever reason, I quite liked him on the commentary, but they weren't willing to keep him there for whatever reason. So even that is slight reason. The one that puzzles me the most is Billy Kay.
Same.
And I sent you something from Reddit the other day, and I'd love to give that Reddit person credit, but I can't credit Reddit because I can't remember the name of the person on Reddit to give credit.
Someone said it on Reddit. We'd like to give him credit, but yeah,
we probably regret it. So
anyway, that's it. I was looking for a finish.
Sorry. So they mentioned that they totally described a really good point with Billy Kay that I never really thought about, but it totally makes sense to me. And it's the fact that like she is the epitome of what they look for, or what they allege they look for in talent. And Triple H has echoed this many a time, where it's like, doesn't matter how much airtime you get, you know, it's about, I'm not going to phrase it as well as this person did, but it's about like using that time and making the most of your position. They give her a shit gimmick. They give her little backstage segments when they split her up from the Iconics of doing her resume backstage, and she turned that into something. She turned it into something so much that she ended up on the WrestleMania card this year.
Yep.
And you go, okay, so it wasn't the best gimmick, and she wasn't exactly like the biggest thing in the women's division, but she totally epitomized, you know, what's the old phrase, Carl, turning chicken shit into chicken salad.
That's
right?
the one.
And she totally sort of epitomized that, and this sounds like exactly what WWE wants, surely. But no, they've released her, which is just baffling. I'd even understand Peyton Royce more, because she's not even been on screen all that much, but how do you come off a new tag team at WrestleMania to then like, yeah, you're gone? It just, I really don't understand the mentality on some of these choices.
Yeah, completely agree. I think obviously Billy Kay is truly the biggest loss that they have had, and I don't mean that in any kind of disrespect to anyone else, especially the likes of Samoa Joe, but you know, we can see why. I think with Joe, it was probably the whole concussion thing and them having a bit of a bad rap now, and various
a lot of people
lawsuits and stuff
likened
over the years.
A lot of people likened it to the same fear they had with Christian, because obviously Christian is cleared to wrestle and is doing so on another brand now, but WWE wouldn't do it. They wouldn't sign it off. Let him have that appearance at the Rumble, but wouldn't sign it off. And it's been sort of compared, and I kind of get like the comparison, because like you say, it's WWE being squeamish, especially with the lawsuits they faced.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think they're still fighting a good few of them.
But I mean, for that,
or a disappointing one would be Mickie James as well, absolute legend in the women's division. And we've mentioned a couple of times that her last run was just she was kind of cheated out of a good sort of final match or whatever, and was randomly put onto like legend status, a legend alumni on Raw Legends Night, and then that was that. And now she's officially been released, which is, again, it's a shame, because it would have been nice to see her have another run, But, I mean, it's not to say she won't, but it looks like it won't be with WWE.
Yeah, no, I think, obviously, Billy Kay was the biggest loss for me, because for that particular reason, she did, make chicken salad out of chicken shit. She, got over. She made us laugh out loud at WrestleMania. She is
I was a bit.
brilliant.
She was actually one of the better things in SmackDown as far as the women's division was going at that point. Like, don't be wrong, you had absolutely epic match between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, and you had the epic build between them. But if you take away the two people at the top at whatever point, like when it was Banks and Bayley, right, the rest of them were kind of floundering, and Billy Kay was like the best thing of those flounderers, if you will. And I really don't get the choice. Like, they're all shocking and they all deserve better, but like your Chelsea Green has been quite injury prone, and you know how Vince can be with that. Tucker has been off air since he split up with Otis. Kalisto might be a bit surprising, because he's like basically no longer part of the Lucha House Party, I guess.
I mean, to be fair, Kalisto is also is another one who I'm pretty shocked at, to be fair. He is so talented, and I would love to see him show up in, the likes of AEW or something like that, because he is, he's just, I think he'd be fantastic for a company if he can actually showcase his abilities.
I could see him doing well in AEW. They like they do like some spots as well, don't they? AEW, like they almost get ripped for it sometimes. So like, oh, spot monkeys and all that kind of thing. But like his high flying style would suit well there. To be fair.
Yeah, definitely.
And then another one that slightly surprised me, and it wasn't because of his in-ring stuff, but you literally just come off the back of mentioning this, and that's the fact that Mojo Rawley is like always around for like the charity stuff and the PR stuff, and is a well-known sort of face of the company in that sort of sense, even though you don't see him in the ring too often. So that was kind of surprising to see him released.
Yeah, I think, probably other than Wesley Blake, Tucker, and Bo Dallas, everyone to a degree was somewhat surprising, I think. Chelsea Green, I know she was unfortunate with injuries, but she could have been something really big.
To be honest, they were big on her. Like when they brought her onto SmackDown, like she was going to be the next big fucking thing. And all right, I know, like I think it was her wrist, wasn't it? She'd broken or injured. So I know that happened, but how do you go from like, yeah, she's going to be great, she's going to be the next big thing, to like completely removed from the company? Is insane.
Yeah, no idea. But I think we have to, speaking again about Billie Kay, I think we have to lambast Kevin Dunn, who has, since been unveiled as potentially the reason why Billie got cut, in the sense that he didn't get her. And if we live in an age where the likes of Kevin Dunn is making decisions on who the people who watch the product get or don't get, it's a sorry time, I think, for WWE. So yeah, I think
just
everybody
didn't gel
here
well with all his camera cuts, did she?
Well, exactly. She was doing punches in different directions, and he just couldn't cope. It was just like, I must cut to every fist. So he was just causing, she was causing him some stress. But yeah, I don't know. It is a shame, especially for certain ones in there, and I hope that they do land on their feet and do some incredible stuff, because there's some absolute talent in there, and it'd be a shame if some of them just call it a day here. Think they've lived the dream and they're happy, but yeah, I'd love to see like the Iconics on AW or even Impact or something. I think they'd be a great fit. They've got such charisma. So yeah, shame all round, unfortunately, and sickening to do it on exactly the 1 year anniversary since the last time they did it. Wouldn't surprise me if they're now trying to make it some kind of like Future Endeavour Day or something. It wouldn't surprise me.
Everyone just gets a little bit nervous every time that time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunate, and hopefully we see a lot of these talents elsewhere, and it's not the end for them. But some shocking decisions, absolutely shocking.
Absolutely. And speaking of shocking decisions, Anthony, so random segue, but still. So John Cena's daddy has been in the news this week. He was interviewed on some show somewhere, and I guess the topic of WrestleMania came up, and he had some very interesting things to say about the Night 1 main event between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. He said, I'm going right back to where the fault belongs, the writers. Who wrote that session for those young ladies to come in and start crying? Somebody had to write it. I don't believe the crying was real. And then when he was asked, do you think they were instructed to cry? He was like, yeah. So, interesting, to be fair, because obviously, you would imagine the emotions are pretty high, pretty real. It was a monumental moment for the pair of them to be, not only the first kind of main event in a one-on-one competition at WrestleMania for the women, but also the first kind of, the black contingent of, a main event almost for the women. So it definitely was a monumental occasion. So you can see why they would be.
I took it as genuine, and I still live with that in my head and go, that I don't think that was scripted, because if it was scripted, I'll go back to what I said last time. Why did you turn Sasha heel? I'd sooner believe it wasn't scripted, because that makes that decision even more fucking stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it's an excellent point, but at the same time, I don't know. I think, to be fair to Johnny Senior, I think he's made me rethink it, to be fair. I don't know whether it actually potentially was. I think it could have been for them to go out there and, maybe the directive was not, go out there and cry on cue. Maybe it was more like go out there and just soak up the moment or something. I can imagine someone going out there saying that.
I would not put it past Vince or any of the other management in that sense to know that that's going to be it's going to grab the views. Similar to what they did with NXT this week. Not the same, but similar to they orchestrated a moment on NXT this week, with the same thing of that's going to grab the views. So I wouldn't put it past them, but I choose to believe it was more organic than that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to hope so. Put it that way, but based on the stuff I've seen and stuff I've watched, from NXT and the backstage stuff, WWE Network has some fantastic documentaries where you can see how stuff goes down. I can completely see someone like Triple H, pulling the pair of them in and saying, "Do you know what, you're making history right now," and kind of setting them off anyway before they even go out there.
You're gonna cry. You're gonna cry.
No, do it more. Do it more. Vince is looking. Do it more. Damn it. But yeah. So I don't think they were explicitly told go out there and start crying for a moment, but I think they were probably told to go out there, soak it up. This is a monumental moment for the pair of you, and Triple H may have already started kind of setting them waterworks off ahead of them going out. So, you can see it because, to your point.
I love the way you paint it, Triple H, the little devil on the shoulder. Wow, it's really emotional, isn't it? You'd be the first woman to do this, right?
That is a such Is Triple H here right now? That is, I can so imagine that being what he is like, to be fair. But yeah, it was a fantastic moment for both of them, whether or not it was scripted, whether or not it was, genuine. I just think, the match itself was fantastic. It was a great night one main event.
Yeah, does it really take away from the moment or the match? No, it doesn't.
I don't think so. I think, it would be a bit ludicrous if that was the case and they were told to go out there and start crying. That would be a bit silly.
Ludicrous wasn't there.
I mean, he might have been. There was enough. There was enough celebrity guests and whatnot there. But yeah. So interesting one from John Cena Jr. John Cena Senior.
It's John Cena Senior.
That's not even nice to say, is it? John Cena Senior. That's a tongue twister waiting to happen. But yeah,
big John Cena.
Yeah, the John Cena you can see. Yeah, interesting, small snippets, but yeah, makes you think.
So, my next one, Carl, it's more of a speculation piece, if you will. But we had a little bit of a hint on social media from one Keith Lee, who you may recall was a wrestler in WWE for a time. No, joking aside, he's been off air for a little while now, and it's a little bit unclear why. I think initially it was they tested him and Mia Yim tested positive for COVID, so he's going to miss the Rumble, and then we just kind of haven't seen him, and it's not really been disclosed why he's been gone for so long, and it still hasn't. So that's not news. But what he has done on social media, he's come on and he said that. To quote him, he says, "I miss you guys as well as all the others that express this sentiment, whether in DMs, tweets, or comments. I miss you all, but do not fret. I will fight like no other to return. And when I do, we got a lot of ground to cover." So, literally, not much to give there in terms of dates for return, why he's gone, anything along that line. But I don't know, just a nice little hint that he's not, he's not done, and he's gonna be back, and he's gonna fight like no other to be back. So. Let's give it a mention and let's discuss, if we will, Carl. I mean, what do you think's going on here? Because he apparently was going to be on for the US title scene and everything at one point, and now he's had to have this shocking amount of time off, just out of nowhere.
Honestly, I don't know. I really hope it's nothing too serious, because the way he's talking about it and stuff, immediately my kind of thoughts go to, again, around the whole kind of concussion. That kind of territory where they're really shying away from it. Anything to do with head injuries or neck injuries, WWE do not piss about. If there's even a slight chance of something being wrong, they won't clear you. So I can only assume it's to do with that. I mean, that's probably best case scenario as well, because obviously, if you think about it, the alternative to that is he could be having complications from COVID, for all we know, and it could be really messing them up. I'd like to think it wasn't as severe as that, and there's no major concerns or anything to do with with
I don't want to be this guy and all the conspiracy nuts, but it'd make a lot of sense why it's really not being disclosed, because WWE wouldn't want that kind of attention.
No, definitely not.
I'd say I don't want to be that guy because it could be anything. But normally when like someone's got like shoulder injury or whatever, you know about it. So
yeah,
it's
I mean,
not like we have to know about these things. I'm just saying.
no, of course, but I think especially the whole kind of blame game of them putting on events and stuff. They would probably get some repercussions from him having it potentially.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that other people have had it and have recovered have been kind of swept under the radar, hasn't it? But if this is any kind of complications, that could be a very, probable reason for it, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I just hope whatever is the issue and whatever is wrong with him, that he overcomes it, because he was a very bright spark on what is a very dull, Monday Night Raw at the minute. He was good to have on there. He was featured quite heavily in high profile feuds, main event scene.
Oh yeah. He was way on that right top of the card, really, wasn't he? From the off.
So yeah, I hope whatever it is that he gets cleared and we get to see him back soon, and hopefully he's not sat on the sidelines, for too much longer. Indeed. I'm sure that was like a Kai and Tai gimmick at one point, but anyway. So Roman Reigns, that guy is unstoppable. He does. He is the head of the table, and he reigns, does Roman. But Bubba Ray Dudley, Bully Ray, the white guy from Team 3D, whatever you want to call him, he, on his radio show, has come out and said, do you know what? There's only one person who I can see legitimately dethroning Roman Reigns. And who do you think it is? Do you think it's someone we've never seen face him before? Do you think it's a young up and comer? Do you think it's an old school legend? What do you think? No, it's someone we've seen plenty of times, Anthony. It is, of course, Brock Lesnar. And yeah, it makes sense, I suppose, to a degree.
I don't mind the story behind that. Like, if you bring him back and there's that conflict for Heyman, I can dig that for a story. I wouldn't want it to like last forever like they tend to, but like, build that feud, have that match. I'd be up for that. Should Brock have the title again? Probably not. No.
Well, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because this, if it happens, what would happen? Would this be the first time that Brock Lesnar is the face in this scenario, and just the first time that Brock Lesnar would be booed? Because this would be the third time of them facing off. If it ever happened at a very major pay-per-view, and historically, Lesnar is the one who was cheered and favored in favor of Roman. But yeah, I don't know. I think now that he's had this kind of heel transformation and he's a lot more over with the fans, it'd be interesting to see whether this is finally the time that we could do Brock versus Roman and have Roman be the one that people want to win, I guess, which would be a rare occurrence,
Yeah. That'll be an interesting one. As I say, surprisingly, you think this would be the type of thing that bitch and moan about, but I'd be interested to see it, especially the way they've built everything up so far. But it'd be interesting to see how they try and approach that.
Definitely. I think the whole thing that you mentioned then, the dynamic between Heyman and Roman versus Heyman and Brock would have to be the catalyst for it. It would make a lot of sense from a storyline perspective.
It'd be stupid if they didn't. Like that story writes itself there.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't know. Like, I love Paul Heyman, don't get me wrong, but I also think Roman, for the first time ever, has built himself up as the person that you care about. So to then kind of put this feud built around Paul Heyman and not Roman, I don't know how I would kind of feel about it, but
I think if they did it, it would be Roman pulling away from Heyman. I think this would be them taking the plunge and getting rid of the mouthpiece, because Roman's proved his chops in that sense. Because let's face it, he talks a lot more, and he's a lot better as a heel. And I don't think he truly needs Heyman anymore. And I think this could be the bit where, like, the either heel move or something along that line, where he betrays Heyman and Heyman backs Brock or brings Brock back. I don't know. There's so many things they could do with it, and it would work for me.
Okay. I mean, there's no guarantee Brock will ever come back. Let's be fair, but I mean, there's not many people out there other than potentially Drew, and I don't know how the fans would feel about that. A lot of fans felt like he was going to be booed at WrestleMania. That wasn't the case. So I'd like to think that they haven't done the Roman Reigns with Drew to the point where they've booked him so strong that as a face that people would turn on him. But there's not many high profile matches. Like, who do you want to see dethrone Roman? Like, there's not many, is there, to be fair? So Brock is definitely,
the trouble at the minute.
Bubba's got a point. Brock is definitely one that would make money, and you could legitimately see him dropping the title too. I think whenever it does happen, it needs to be to somebody like even Cesaro. As much as I love him, do I want to see Roman drop the title to him? Maybe not. I don't know. But someone like Brock,
feud,
you could see it. But yeah, fascinating. I would say. Who knows where it's going to go?
Who knows? Speaking of who knows, CM Punk. I'm going to start this actually by apologising to CM Punk. Not that he ever listens to me or knows that I need to apologise, because I've realised something, and it's from this one that I always kind of have a go that CM Punk puts himself in the media again, and he doesn't want to join wrestling again, but he's always saying something about wrestling. But I realise he's always fucking getting asked about wrestling.
That is true.
This had they were like, oh, he was in a Q&A and someone asked him about Samoa Joe. I'm like, well, you can't not answer the question, can you? So part of me is a bit like, he's just kind of a magnet for it as well. So it's not like he goes out of his way to get involved. But obviously Samoa Joe was released, so naturally, what does CM Punk think? And that's why I'm not being bitchy, because I know that people just decided to ask CM Punk. But the reason it's a notable question is because they had a really long friendship and some really good feuds during their Ring of Honor time together. So they go way back. And a lot of people would love to see a return of CM Punk versus Samoa Joe at some point, in some way. Mm-hmm. And now, obviously, the speculation's starting. Like, could we see this? Is it possible to see this? Are we going to get this at AEW? Are we going to get a return to Ring of Honor? And question is, maybe. Yeah. Obviously, CM Punk has responded with, anything is possible.
Of I think course,
it's just a case of, Tony Khan sits down and goes, right, I'm going to put a 1, and I'm going to keep writing zeros. And at some point, you're going to say yes.
But you didn't tell me where to put the decimal, Phil. I would love it, like, super evil Tony Khan, just like Dr. Evil style. Promises him all the money in the world, but he just puts his little decimal point and gives him $100. So, correct me if I'm wrong, would this be the trilogy fight, potentially? I know that they fought a couple of times before, in terms of a very high profile kind of match.
Yeah, I believe so. It's one of them where, I didn't really follow their Ring of Honor time, so I couldn't tell you about their history all too much. But I believe this would be the trilogy fight.
Well, damn. I don't know.
Tony and AEW are not squeamish about doing one-offs, even if they've done a one-off payday for Punk, where he doesn't come back as a regular talent. He just comes back one time for a decent paycheck. They could make it happen.
Oh, they could.
I don't say AEW because obviously Joe's not going to go to WWE for that match.
That is true. I don't know. It's a weird one, isn't it? I don't know what Punk wants out of life anymore. I think, he started doing some acting now, hasn't he? He's got that TV series that he's on. So who honestly knows? I think I've been quite vocal in saying that his time, in the spotlight is probably, that's dimmed a bit, in my opinion. I don't think he will come back to the same level of, grandeur and impact.
I think he's missed that point. People will always react when he comes back, but I think he's missed that point when it was it's fever pitch, when people were chanting for him.
That's it. Every week they wanted him back, and nothing happened. And then he came back on fucking Backstage, and it was like, oh, okay,
kind of ruined it.
So yeah, we've seen you quite a bit. Okay. We saw you get your ass kicked in UFC. We've seen you, be a shit fucking host on WWE Backstage. Do we really want to see you again? But
I believe he did some commentating as well for a bit in UFC as well.
In UFC?
I don't know. It might have been one of the was it Bellator? I don't know. One of the ones that's not UFC.
Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. I think if it happens, I definitely think it would be a one-off. And to be honest, it probably would make sense him doing it in Ring of Honor, even though Tony's got the money. I don't think Punk needs it or probably wants it.
Well, that's the thing. I think it depends what they want out of it. I think it'd be, imagine being able to, Ring of Honor, the company that made them, in a way, because that would be a massive boom for Ring of Honor. So it'd be a way of them giving back to the company that started them. So I think that'd be a really nice way of doing it.
Yeah, defo. So fingers crossed that is the outcome we get.
Indeed.
But speaking of outcomes that we might get, Anthony, Sebastian Stan, the Winter Soldier himself,
A Wiltshire show this.
the Worcestershire sauce soldier, also known as Bucky Barnes from the Marvel
We'll go with
Cinematic
Bucky
Universe. Bucky Barnes, easier to say. He has come out and said that, you know what? A future role I would love to have is playing the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Many people, including me, probably would have Ric Flair on the Mount Rushmore of wrestlers of all time. Not you, Anthony. We know how you feel. It's cool. But Ric Flair definitely is the kind of character, the kind of person who, with the legacy he's got in pro wrestling, deserves his own biopic. And if that ever came to fruition, our friend Bucky Buckerson,
Booker T.
not Kevin Dunn, this actor guy, he would want to play that role. Basically, he was interviewed and said, you know what, we got to do Ric Flair. I would love to do that in a biopic. He said, I'm such a big wrestling fan. I was such a big wrestling fan growing up. I know how to do a kip up. So maybe if I have the opportunity, my next role will be Ric Flair. I would do it in a second if they'd let me. I mean, pretty soon I'll be eligible, I guess. I don't know what he means by that last bit. I don't know whether you can shed any light on that. Whether it means he's freed up from his MCU contracts or what.
I have one concern here,
Go
Sebastian,
ahead.
if you're listening.
Seb,
right? You can do all the K-pop you want, right? And you can be a big wrestling fan. But there's one thing we need from you. We need to hear your woo. Because if you can't do the woo, you're not having the role. Simple as that.
I like that. You know what? That in itself is just a t-shirt, isn't it? If you can't do the woo, you can't have the role. I like it.
That's true. But no, for me, I'm like, I need to know. Like, he's a good actor. He plays the Winter Soldier well, but Rick's a different character entirely, and I need to know that he can do the Ric Flair strut and the Ric Flair woo, and if he can put that onto social media to prove that he's the man for the job, then I'll be happy with that.
Me too. But do you know what though? I think I would love to see a Ric Flair biopic. I know Hogan's apparently getting on, isn't he, with another MCU guy in Thor himself.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth. That's the only reason Sebastian Stan wants in on it, isn't it?
Well, that's it. He's like, well, if Thor is Hogan, then I could be Ric Flair. But yeah, I mean, let's see what happens with that. Whether if it's successful, I imagine they would be open to doing more. If it's not, which based on the fucking reception Hogan got at WrestleMania, yeah, who knows? But yeah, let's see. I think it'd be an interesting choice. But it's a great character to play, isn't it, Ric Flair? So yeah, I would be all for any kind of biopic about the Nature Boy. Let's just say that.
Indeed. So the next one, Carl. Jim Ross on his recent edition of Grilling JR. I always go say Junior. It's not Junior. Grilling JR. He's talked about the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Will Ospreay. And he's mentioned how fantastic a talent he is. In fact, he's even cited him as the greatest ever, which is like a bold statement from a man who's well ingrained in the business as well. But basically, he's alluding to the fact that he let's say we're hoping that the Forbidden Door may still be slightly ajar, and we could see Will Ospreay rock up on AEW at some point. And that is something he'd very much like to see. He'd like to see those sort of those matchups, but he's gone as far as saying, he'd love to see him wrestle in AEW, and he thinks he'd go great here. Now, this is a want from JR, but do you think this is something that maybe they would look at? I mean, the Forbidden Door has well and truly been opened. He's not, unobtainable in that sense. It'd be a good another good partnership thing to do. In fact, putting him into a program with Omega would be a good shout. The belt collector himself,
Do you know what? I hope they do, because, he's not a local boy, but he's from England. He's from Essex. And I don't know much about him at all, to be fair.
We saw him, I think he was on Defiant a few times, but yeah, I'm unfortunately I don't know too much about him either, but
all I know is that he is, consistently rated by old melts as, putting on pretty wonderful matches.
All melts.
All the stars. So yeah, the beauty about AEW and what they're doing at the minute with all these other companies is that it does open that door to potentially seeing people that normally you wouldn't spend the time to watch. And I've heard wonderful things about Will Ospreay. I will never sit here and preach or say that he's anything amazing, because I haven't seen him. But I've heard wonderful things, and I would love to see him. For me, if he is as good as people say he is, then him versus Omega, then I'm all for that. Inject it into me veins. But yeah, I can't comment because I don't know enough. So I think this kind of relationship, that AEW has with these other companies, then I think that's another reason why it's just so good, because I'm excited at that prospect.
Places that we're not able to watch New Japan, or we're not able to watch. I started watching NWA Power before they pulled it off YouTube, and we're not able to sort of give the same time to them. So it is great seeing that crossover, because it gets eyes on people that we don't necessarily know that well. And like you say, Will Ospreay is one of them. We always know the name, but we just haven't seen. He hasn't wrestled for any companies that we watch on a regular basis, so we haven't seen a lot of them. But that says something that his name does keep cropping up.
Definitely. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Speaking of names that keep cropping up, Anthony, Eva fucking Released. So she hasn't been used for a while on AEW TV.
I haven't actually seen much of her since Thunder Rosa, actually.
Yeah, which is which is weird, really. When you think about how that whole thing with Thunder Rosa went, where she pissed me the fuck off with the way she behaved in the ring. So wouldn't you just know it? Again, our old buddy Meltz has come out and said, you know what? The story was there was an issue with her and a few coaches, and she's not being booked right now. But it's not like she's been let go either at this point. So it's like, right, okay. Then, wouldn't you know it, she does a tweet saying she's available for signings and bookings. So here's our, contact email. So I think she's been released. I'm going to ignore Dave. I think we haven't seen her for a while because, unfortunately, as talented as she may be, I think she's the current, is it Stardom? I think she's like a champion in Stardom, potentially. Oh no, Shine. Yeah, she's a champion in Shine. So many promotions. Right. But yeah, she's a champion in Shine, and she's good. She's a great worker. The problem is what seems to be is her attitude. For whatever reason, this isn't the first time that we've heard about Eva Released just having heat in a promotion that she works in, and some people unfortunately just can't get out of their own way. And I think she's a prime example of this. I was so disgusted in her actions in that Thunder Rosa match, the way that she just no-sold that thing and pulled her face and was shrugging, and it was like, what are you doing? Like, you're meant to be a professional. So to be honest, if she's gone, good riddance, because like, put it this way, she's put her fucking email out there. I'm not going to be contacting her anytime soon for this fucking show, because I couldn't give a fuck, to be fair. She's just
really pissed you
completely despicable. She's despicable in my book. I don't see how you can do something like that. The whole ethos of pro wrestling is you should have the person you're in the ring with. You should have their back. You should tell the story and everything. You should be a consummate professional. She never seems to be. So, talented or not, if you can't do the basics, then fuck off, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Bold statements. Don't think I can put it any better myself.
There you go.
So, I'll tell you what, we'll close out on one that ended up being quite a good read, and I thought it was going down a certain angle. So I'll keep it brief, but I'll encourage everyone to check out Wrestling Inc.'s interview with JTG. Sorry, I was trying to find his real name. With JTG of Crime Time. Now, basically, the headline is one of them clickbait headlines, and this is what I thought. This is going to be one of them articles. Because the headline was JTG recalls WWE's non-black writers scripting Crime Time promos. And I'm like, right, so, it's going to be one of them where it's about, like, that sort of issue of, like, oh, yeah, that, they weren't written well and the whole thing didn't work and so on like that. And quite surprisingly, JTG remembers it rather fondly. And while he acknowledges, like, their gimmick wouldn't have worked in 2021, the insight from it was quite surprising, because he was saying about, like, Vince McMahon's, what he was trying to do with it was trying to flip it on its head. So he was trying to, yeah, you are that stereotype and you are coming out and stealing stuff, but you're coming out with that sort of stereotype and flipping on its head because you're doing it in that charming, likable way that you're getting the crowd over. And like his whole idea was to change the sort of flip the script, as it were. So that was interesting in itself. But when the clickbait headline part, that particularly amused me because they said about basically they had to pretty much do their own thing when it comes to scripting. That there was a lack of black writers, and they didn't know really how to be cool, as it were. And he said the writers would be going to like Urban Dictionary or slang.com, and they'd be like, oh, is it cool to say this? And he'd be like, no, we can't say, the example he's given is, no, we can't say mollywop, the kids aren't saying that anymore. So they pretty much had to do their own thing because the writers just didn't know how to relate to their audience and the younger crowd. So it actually wasn't the article I thought it was, or the interview I thought it was going to be, but I just wanted to put a bit of light on it and say it's a very interesting one. Like, and it is one of them things where if you tried to do it in 2021, it probably wouldn't work. And they had some issues with the whole. You might recall the bit they did with Lita where they stole a bag and then just passed it out to the crowd and stuff. Some bits maybe didn't work as well as they should, but I think it was quite interesting to see what they were trying to get out of it as well, more than anything. So I thought what a good way to sort of close out the news on that one and just sort of say, check that out, check that interview out with JTG with Wrestling Inc. because it's an interesting one.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's nice that he spoke about them in somewhat of a positive light because we know that the WWE writing staff aren't always. I mean, they're not cool. Let's be honest. They haven't got a clue, have they? In some cases, but yeah,
I think they've just sacked about 10 people.
I'm going to rant about this during Raw, so I won't speak too much about it now. But let's just say when the performers are allowed to do their own promos and talk from their own hearts and mindsets, it tends to be better. So we'll leave it there. But that, Anthony, was the Ringside Report. So we will be back momentarily. Here's some noise for you to listen to.
You're watching or listening
to A to the K.
The A2theK.
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 These guys are awesome. Check it out.
Check it out. Change your life. You'll be thanking me later.